even in the area just above your groin, you could even attack the as well with sharp blow. Kind of actually weaken them a lot and get a chance to run away. So not just learning about the body and the weak points. It tends to be a very quick and efficient way of defending yourself because it can really save your life.
Very nice. I see you know your weak points and where exactly to hit them. I like that. So hiring Christina, do you have any last minute survival recommendations to everyone, just in case something was to happen in the next couple of years?
I do. I think research is very important right now because there's ways of, if you can't find a water source, you can actually drink your urine to kind of just keep yourself going for a little bit longer than until you can get to a water source. It's kind of gross for some people, I'm sure, but as it was mentioned, preference is not an option right now. So doing research about like little tidbits like that as to how to survive is very important, I think.
Yeah, that's true.
Very nice. I agree. And Hari?
I would say that, and also just knowing locally, like there's usually some sort of freshwater source, in an area where people live. So like, just becoming familiar with where those sources are and where they flow. Even if it's underground, being familiar with that is beneficial. And like Gary said, I mean, knowing anatomy, knowing where the arteries are is really important. Especially if all you have is a knife, then obviously you want to go for the arteries, like in the throat or under the armpits, and that's about it. Just start preparing. It doesn't hurt to know these things anyway.
Just one quick point.
Sure.
Yeah, just the point on water. What I've realized that even if you have a fresh source of water, if you have it stored in certain kinds of plastics, if it stays for a period of time, it can actually become more contaminated because the plastic it's in. So I actually recommend glass. I know glass might be more fragile than plastic, but it actually stays for you in the long run. And I know, like, so the bottles that make a bottle of water, with the bottle water has actually stayed in the plastic and actually much more hazardous than tap water. So I think that's a good point for people to remember.
Mm-hmm. That's true. I never thought about that. Glass, the natural water, the resources of water. Because even if you have a limited abundance of water stored, it's only going to be okay until it's gone, and then you're going to have to fight to get some more, which is not good. That's a really good point for both of you guys, definitely. Guys, do you have any more last minute recommendations?
I would just tell people to just start to become flexible and start in how you think and how you live, and start to prepare for certain things. Like if you try to go 3 hours or 4 hours without electricity. See how you go. Try to start eating less. So that you have to go, you might prepare yourself to maybe go through long periods of time without food. Very importantly, start to, if you have like-minded friends as well, start to kind of discuss with them scenarios where you guys would meet up with each other if something happens. Because when riots and stuff like that start, there's safety in numbers. So things like that, I definitely think a survival network, if you can, especially if you live in certain regions, it's very important. I think even like what John was talking about, even when in the woods, I think people who are in rural areas should also be prepared for is that sometimes when you're in a rural area or a suburb, you think you're safe. One of the things that they should be prepared for is people from the city might start to go in places like that. So you want to kind of prepare yourself for all those scenarios mentally, because what's going to happen is the one key thing, especially if you're in America, Americans are not really used to rioting. So when that type of stuff happens, it's going to be much different than what you see in Europe. So you really want to start to prepare yourself for everything. So start being flexible. If when you go to the supermarket, buy 2 cans, buy 2 extra cans. It might cost like $1.50. By the end of like 2-3 months, you have like 30-40 extra cans. Things like that. Solar generators. I mean, if you have a backup generator, it costs $1,000. Maybe invest in that. Just try to start being flexible is the key. So that's what I would suggest.
Very nice. Very nice. So basically, what we learned today is basically, you know, with inflation in the economy and not having a bailout plan for the next recession, we should all be prepared for the worst case scenario. And therefore, just I think that at the end of the day, the most important thing is just think if all of us were to survive a month without electricity, no debit card or ATM, how would we all survive? And based on that, should give us a new perception on, you know, what exactly are we going to get to work? There will be no work. How exactly are we going to be prepared for food? Because there will be no food. Which gives us a new perception on this whole reality. So I think this was a really good and very sourceful discussion. Does anyone have any last minute discussion? Oh, here's Eric.
I would suggest people start looking into investing, or at least making some kind of like smart investments right now to like really get their like their revenue or their income up, like, and like it helps. I don't even know to be honest.
No, it's not what you mean, because, you know, our currency is going to be different. I know it's kind of weird because you just came in when we're about to close and you're not sure exactly what happened. But basically, some of the stress that we talked about is, you know, if the economy crashes and inflation comes up, and therefore dollar bills will not be resourceable as it used to be, and therefore... But you know what I think, like, you know, just to sidetrack things on real quick, you know what I think people should really realize is everyone gets into this, what's good and what's bad. You know, like, breaking into someone's house is not good. Taking food out of someone's fridge is not good. However, when we're exactly, Christina, like when we're in the mode of survivalism, there is no rules. You know, people will break into your house and take your food if you're not there. So therefore, you're going to need a community who's going to be able to protect your fridge, especially if everyone knows that you have all the food. You know, it's going to be hot commodity, right? So, you know, with Hurricane Katrina, I know a lot of people said, you know, a lot of people were, you know, going into the houses of other people and stuff, and you know, there is no rules. So I think a lot of times people have to think about that perception when it comes to survivalism.
I also have a question of opinion for you guys. What do you think would be the best way to go about it? Would it be best to stay where you are, or to move on, go find somewhere that's better, like a better location? Like to be nomadic or stay put or something like that? Like, what do you guys think?
I personally think is in your location is if you're in a safe location where it's hard for people to trespass into your area. Because where I live now, it's okay, but where I lived prior to this, I mean, anyone could walk into my backyard, anyone could break into my windows, anyone can come into my house, and I would personally think that wasn't safe. Where I live now, it's on the 3rd floor, so people would have to go through 3 floors and break into bars to basically come through. So I think it would have to be like being prepared. So if my place wasn't, you know, okay, then I would have to figure out something in my immediate area which was more safer. Do you guys have any suggestions of when to know when to leave or when to stay?
I mean, if you guys are gonna stay, I'd suggest like really getting like some type of adequate protection, like a gun. You know, if you guys are really that serious about standing your ground and like, you know, making sure your house is safe, and especially if you have like food in your backyard that you're growing, because a lot of people might come after that. Because like when it comes to survival, you have to have like some type of food source, and a lot of people like to grow things in the backyard. When you're trying to protect that, you gotta have a gun. But if you guys are trying to move, I would suggest somewhere where there's not so many people, where it's not going to be so, I guess panicky, or there's not going to be so much turmoil. Like maybe somewhere where there might be a community of people who are already preparing, you know, for that type of situation. Like I would recommend that.
Yeah. Also, if you're going to travel, like, you know, a lot of people will probably want to travel to see their family and friends. I know it's going to sound crazy, but I think freeways are going to be the way that everyone's going to feel safe traveling. Because if you're traveling in like the side street, walking down the side areas, you never know who's going to be able out there to mob you. So I think if anything to that extreme was to happen, I think a lot of people are going to feel safe in numbers, and the safe in numbers will be everyone walking on the freeway. So unfortunately, I think the freeways is going to be the best way to travel if you're near a freeway. Yeah, bicycles. I mean, because you don't really need gas. It's just you and the machine, right? I mean, it's when people really think about it, it's very a scary perception. It's something that no one really wants to think about, but it's always good just to think of it just worst case scenario. So if something does happen, like what can I do to be more comfortable? Because like even walking, like let's just say you want to walk 20 miles, your shoes wear out, and if your shoes wear out, people are going to be taking shoes off of other people, even dead bodies. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I'm just saying worst case scenario.
Even by having socks that are made of like having like the socks most of us wear are made of cotton, and those those are actually bad for your feet when you're walking a while. Like it's better to have like wool socks. Or,
Exactly.
I actually think as well, a very cruising scenario as well. Hopefully it doesn't get that bad. Is that people might start being cannibals. Food might be at such a shortage that they're so desperate that they actually go for the nearest food, what they see as food, and they might target you. So I think that's hopefully it doesn't get this bad, but I think people should be prepared to even accept that possibility as well.
No, definitely. I mean, I think definitely, because I think, we all hear those survival instincts where, people didn't intend to eat each other become cannibalism, but it was all they needed to do to basically survive. So sometimes that can be a case. I mean, sometimes you have to think of ethical questions like, would you eat your pet? I know it sounds horrible, but if you're hungry, or would you eat someone else's pet? I wouldn't eat Yoshi or Kamala. But what I'm saying though is people would think that, or they'd be looking after you like, I'll take your cat. You know what I mean? Like sometimes people have to think of those ethical questions.
I definitely think when it comes to this scenario, people have to expect the unexpected. And because a lot of disasters happen because they don't expect the unexpected. So never think that you have things unlocked. Never think that you have things all figured out. When you even planning, prepare for things not to work. So that's one of the core things I think people have to realize. Even things, because for instance, a lot of people think that, because you might have guns, that's good. But you don't really realize everybody might start having guns at that point. Certain things. The thing is, when it comes to this type of scenario, a lot of this stuff may not happen, but you have to realize that it might happen. And just start, the first thing is preparing yourself for anything. And I think people don't really get into that. You could plan, and sometimes nothing's gonna happen according to plan. So it's one of even if you take a martial art, you might take a self-defense, and because you took a self-defense, you might get cocky. But you don't realize that learning how to do certain things in a controlled environment is not the same thing as in real life. And that's one of the things most people don't really realize. And I think that's the key to everything. Just be flexible. Remain flexible. You might live in the woods, you might live in the suburbs, you might have gold, and things could still go wrong. And that's one of the keys that we all have to realize. Just be flexible. Some of the stuff may not happen, some of it may. But just prepare yourself for anything. And once you do that, that's the first step. That's how I would look at it. Anybody else have anything to say after that?
No.
Anything to add?
No. I think that was solid right there.
Well, this is a great show. And hopefully we could continue this topic another time, and if we do a part 2, we could get into, because there's so many scenarios to get into when it comes to preparation. We kept it very logical, very physical this time. Maybe next time we get into some esoteric topics, But this was a good show for this one. So until next time, I guess, peace, everybody.
Peace. Adios, everyone. I hope you guys enjoyed this show. That was Omelette Roundtable. with Eric, Kevin, Last Minute, and John, Gary, Perry, and Christine.